Welcome into episode 356 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by the one and only Sean Smith of Frederick Douglass Basketball. Sean, how the heck are you?
I'm fantastic, Jack. Yeah, y'all had a good time without me last week. SEC Media Days. I know that was a fun thing for you, but we got to see something the last few days, Friday night, Kentucky basketball, and then we get to see it again here very soon. So, man, it's exciting times.
We got to see the blue-white preseason event thanks to our presenting sponsor, Club Blue. Appreciate everything Club Blue does. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Sean, SEC Media Day, an absolute blast. It was cool to, see Cal again. It was cool to see all the other coaches ask the other opposing coaches about Mark Pope and watch him make his debut and just kind of be his organic self, just very unapologetically Mark Pope and, wearing the Letterman jacket, just rocking, I like that he kind of said that he grabbed the Letterman jacket off the recruiting table that, one of the recruits come in and, wear the UK gear and all that. He just looked at the table, said, that's something that I want to wear. I'm going to take it with me and bring it to SEC Media Day. So my first impression in front of all of the opposing coaches in the SEC, the guys that I'll be competing with, tooth and nail, blood, sweat, and tears put on the court all season long. This is going to be their first shot at seeing me, representing the University of Kentucky. So, just very, very Mark Pope. I really loved it. He did a great job and said all the right things, cool, kind of getting Cal's perspective and sharing his story about their relationship, all that. But it was talking season. It is what it is. Quotes are quotes. At the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much. The blue-white preseason event is exactly what we needed to kind of whet our palate going into the real stuff. We needed to wet our beak a little bit, see what this team was, all the stuff that we talked about, that we watched on film and said, hey, here's what we could probably expect from Kentucky this season. We finally got to see it with our own two eyes, Sean. And I can say with confidence that Kentucky's going to be good. I saw more than enough to make me know and say with confidence that this is going to be a really good Kentucky team. Again, I don't know what the ceiling looks like. I don't know how great they can be, but all of the pieces are there. The system is in place that is so fun and so entertaining and intriguing in so many different ways that it's just so player friendly that when you have as many good players as you have with a system that caters to those players, you just know it's going to work. How well it's going to work, we'll see how long it takes to kind of just knock the rust off and get these guys feeling and playing the way they should. And unlike playing with 12 brand new faces and names and just learning each other and building trust and all those things, once they kind of knock that rust off and they become the well-oiled machine that I could kind of see the vision of them becoming at the blue-white event, I feel really, really good about this team, and we get to see them for the first time tomorrow night.
Yeah, we do. And, I've had a lot of people asking me what I thought since, we got to see them and some of the things that they do, because obviously not everybody had the opportunity to see what happened Friday night. But all my answers have been at work this week and in other places, Jack, that they're doing exactly what we thought they were going to be doing. They're doing all those things offensively that we talked about in the offseason and even leading up to last week. They're doing them. The actions that we saw in the half court, taking a lot of threes. Now, I know the numbers and things don't show what we're hopeful that we'll see as the season gets going, but there clearly was some rust and some getting acclimated to a live environment, live setting with people in the stands. I know that they practice every single day and there's people in there, but it's different when you go into a building where I don't know how many shots that they have actually taken.
Good point.
In Memorial Coliseum in that setting, when you got the Joe Kraft Center right there, and I know they've scrimmaged some and done some work in Rupp Arena. They'll be having obviously some shoot arounds and stuff leading up to the first exhibition game, but all the action and things looked good. I thought that they look like they know the system. They look like they know their spots. Obviously, roles will be settled into here over the coming weeks, but I'm not too worried about the rust or some of the mistakes, because that's why you want to have a game like that, is to get acclimated, get up and down, in front of the fans that you're going to be playing in front of. And then the first real test is tomorrow night. And you want it to look a little better than what you looked in the blue-white game. Now, here's the thing about it. You're not having to go against your own guys. You're now together going against another team for the first time other than La Familia. So that's what tomorrow night's about. It's checking another box. But overall, Jack, I think they're on par with what we expect them to be. And I'm not too concerned about anything that I saw. I'm actually encouraged that they look like they know what they're doing. Shots will fall. These guys are going to make shots. And we had a sequence where there were 3 straight make threes. I mean, Jackson Robinson hits a 3 from a cross-court skip pass. Then Ansley Almanor hits one, and I think Andrew Carr came down and hit one. There was literally 3 straight threes in a sequence within a matter of 20 seconds. So you did see some flashes of what they can do and how they can shoot the basketball.
I remember so vividly Big Z making his debut last year and having this, like, it wasn't perfect, and probably the game, the next couple of games that followed, where we were just kind of figuring out what the hell we had in Big Z, and he would make a read, go try to hit a cutter that the cutter wasn't ready for, where it was the vision of, oh, his head is in the right space here, just didn't execute it. There was a lot of that stuff that I saw where you had Amari Williams thinking 3-4 steps ahead of the competition or of his teammates, and his teammates maybe being just 1 or 2 steps ahead, just not quite there, missing on the cut, not in the right space, kind of stepping on each other's heels every once in a while. It was just little misfires here and there that made you go, okay, I know what he was trying to do there. I know what the vision is for these guys. I can see what they're thinking. And when they do kind of learn each other's tendencies and know, okay, well, I'd rather hit me here instead of here, or I actually liked this spot a little bit better than over here. The read and react, the understanding each other and building that trust and chemistry when they have it. It's just not there quite yet, but when they have it, I really do think that there is going to be a game where they score 120 points. And it's just like, whoa, what are we even watching? Like that Kentucky-Alabama game this past year, where it was just like, when everything's firing on all cylinders, whoa, the product is going to be really, really good. You saw that. And even considering the shortcomings and just still learning each other, not playing against another team and knowing the rotations and the lineups and building in the fatigue aspect of things, because there is so much off-ball movement and cutting. And how is that going to factor in when you don't have to play 40 minutes? You can split it up 20 minutes a pop instead. Those little things that you can only find out by them playing against real competition, it's all going to be there. And that's what tomorrow is for. That's what the Minnesota Mankato next week, and then the real stuff, Wright State the week after. That's what comes next. But man, I just think the vision is there, the creativity is there, and the fun and the entertainment value is just so clearly there. I saw the numbers, I saw the stats: 43.8% from the field, 36.7% from 3 for the blue team, and then 53% overall, 31.6% from 3 for the white team. It's fine. It's going to be fine.
And kind of going back to what I was saying a moment ago, where now you're going to have all your guys on one team as one force going against another opponent. You can kind of mix and match your best, right? Like, because that's what you're trying to figure out at this point. Is you're entering the season. You have an idea. You got a blueprint. You have your system. Now it's about finding out what makes that system work best, right? Like, what ingredients still got to put in this to make it be the best that it's going to be, or the best that it can be. That's Mark Pope's job over the next 4 months. You got the core of it now. You've got what you want to do offensively. You've got what you want to do defensively. But when you can get your best out there, your best 5 together, it's going to look better. You're going to make more shots. You're going to rebound more balls. You're going to defend better. You're going to do everything better when you got your best together. I don't know how often they had their best together in those two teams, because it's hard when you divide them up and you got Jackson going one way and you got Biggs going another and you got another guard going here. Like, now you're going to get to see some type of continuity and system and minutes and things. And here's going to be the key, Jack. What is the minutes distribution? Like, what does it look like? Because you don't get that in the blue-white game. Everybody kind of gets opportunities because you need all the bodies to play. Tomorrow night, you're actually going to get something to know then that's going to give immediate feedback on how practice has gone for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, okay, where is this guy currently standing? Now, injuries and things or being banged up, like that's going to play into it some for some guys. But you're going to kind of get an idea of where Mark Pope's going tomorrow night when they tip off for the first scrimmage. But remind me at the end, I've got a really funny story about Mark Pope and Lamont Butler. I know that I told Jack about, so just don't let me forget to tell that story because I think people are going to enjoy that.
Stat-wise, Andrew Carr led all scorers with 25 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 4 from 3, 10 of 10 at the line. Hello. 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Jackson Robinson added 15 points. Brandon Garrison had 10 and 6. Kobe Brea 8. Travis Perry 6. Trent Noah 3. And then the white squad, Colin Chandler. Where did you come from, Colin? Led the way, 19 points, 7 of 10 shooting, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. Amari Williams looked terrific. 15.6 rebounds. Otega Owe, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Really liked what I saw at Otega. And then Lamont Butler, 11 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists to round out the double-digit scorer. So Andrew Carr looked exactly the way we kind of thought. Maybe 10 of 10 at the free throw line isn't sustainable in terms of both efficiency and volume. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be living at the free throw line, but the way he was utilizing a lot of the actions and the catch and shooter and a lot of the zoom and those things that was really, really fun. Loved seeing him as kind of the guy. But Colin Chandler was the one where you watch and you go, okay. I know that this is the most misleading event in the history of misleading events. Every single year, go back to Darnell Dodson dropping 25 in his debut as a Wildcat. You can never take too much from the blue-white scrimmage. I get it. I totally understand. I know this event is made for, whoa, is this going to be a sustainable thing once we see this kid play in real games? But I already believed in Colin Chandler. I have always really liked the idea and potential of Colin Chandler, but just didn't know how quickly he'd be ready to contribute and how he was contributing in terms of his athleticism and shot making and like some of the knocking rust off of like just knowing where to be and where to get there. I talked to him today, asked him about just kind of, what is the next level? Like what does the full potential of Colin Chandler looks like if your debut was this strong. And he said, I'm not feeling as fast as I would like to be. I'm not feeling as athletic as I'd like to be, which is shocking considering he put Brandon Garrison on an absolute poster dog. But he looked to me like an immediate contributor, Sean, that I haven't even really been factoring him into the when we talk about this team being a high floor team, but not necessarily knowing what the ceiling looks like. Colin Chandler's a ceiling guy. That's a star potential guy that I just kind of assumed was going to be a sophomore year, but maybe he's going to be ready to contribute in a high level, high producing role, maybe sooner rather than later.
And that I know we've talked about him on here, and I said it. I'm pretty sure I said it on here back a few weeks ago. That to me, if you ask me one thing that I hope happens this season, and this is just selfishly for program development within your program and development and here and how long he can possibly be here, I'm hopeful that Colin Chandler was good enough to be in the rotation because that means you're building beyond this year, that you're not just kind of trying to win in year one with a bunch of older guys with super seniors and then them go. You want to have something left over to come back from. Is that Brandon Garrison? Is it Colin Chandler? Does Travis Perry have a role? Is Otega Owe kind of develop and emerge and be a leader a year from now? So seeing Colin Chandler do some of those things, Jack, we know what his game is, but he was the guy that we've kind of maybe just penciled as a project piece that has a lot of upside to his game. Now we got to see the upside because he got up on one of those plays, but he's a guy to me, when you're talking about what Ken Palm has Kentucky projected to do, and I know it's not great, Like, if you're going off what Ken Palm's projecting, this is going to be a season where I think that a lot of us would have to kind of be like, all right, how do we feel about it being year one? Now, we know that Ken Palm doesn't at that point in preseason, Jack. Like, I'm not getting caught up in 18-13 or 8-10 in the league or whatever they're projected to be, because I think this team has pieces to outperform that significantly. But Colin Chandler is a guy that can maybe tweak and change about how good we think they can be, just because he has upside that some of these older guys don't have. That if he's able to crack some of that potential earlier than maybe what you had planned, then I think he can kind of take Kentucky to another level. And then, to me, I keep thinking about how deep Kentucky can be, and how at some point this is going to be maybe a little bit of an issue for Pope, is where does he go rotation-wise? I don't see him playing 11, 12 guys. I see this thing getting to 9. Maybe it's 10 early here in the preseason and then early in the regular season. But after that Duke game, I think it's going to be down to 9 guys. Is he one of the 9? Certainly off what we saw in the blue-white game, he is. So that's not a bad thing. Like, if he emerges and just is better and ahead of what we thought, I think Kentucky can outperform maybe what some expect them to be. But I thought he looked great. I thought Brandon Garrison made a really nice move too. He got a switch out of a ball screen in the middle of the floor and got a duck in. And just those IQ things of understanding situations. You get a little on you, you're going to abuse him in the post, and that's what he did. So I think you're seeing some of the IQ plays, some of the rust and stuff that will naturally play its way out was also present. But Jackson Robinson, another guy I want to hit on, that's a dude, man. Like, he's going to score the ball and do things in a variety of ways that some other guys I don't think can. There was one middle ball screen where he put a guy on his back with a hostage dribble and then got downhill and finished. And that's the look of a guy that's done it for a long time, but more so the look of a guy that's done it for a long time in the system that he's playing in right now.
And I want to touch on him. I want to find the exact quote, but it addressed. So I asked for questions on KSBoard, which, by the way, make sure you're subscribed to KSBoard, because that's where we're answering all the questions right here on the show. But somebody asked about Isaac Humphreys Burner says, do Jackson Robinson and Kobe Brea coast too much? I feel like they weren't going 100% when other players definitely were. And my response to that was, Jackson has such an Antonio Reeves approach to me, where he's just wired to score. He's the guy that he's going to feel quiet, feel like he's not doing anything. And then you'll look up at the box score and he is 24 on, 6 of 11 shooting from 3. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? He just kind of has that quiet, I've been here, done that approach, which is exactly what you're talking about. He just has this, that he carries himself in such a professional bucket getter way, where he doesn't need the flash. He doesn't need to break you down and put on an and one mixtape to show off his game. He's just very calculated with every step, and not over dribbling, not just very approachable. He has a very approachable game that comes across as almost lackadaisical, almost comes across as like, man, I wish he kind of played with fire. Would you say Antonio Reeves plays with fire? No, but that dude is a dog who can fill it up at all 3 levels and is an NBA player because of it. I think Jackson Robinson is going to be a very similar player. He's going to produce in a very similar way. And here's the catch. The approach and just kind of how he's been carrying himself is one thing, but you talk to him off, on camera, and you talk, interview him and ask him about different things. And he feels slighted with how he was treated at Arkansas, how he was treated at Texas A&M, maybe the lack of spotlight that he had at BYU to not be an NBA guy. Like, well, he could do it at BYU. Yeah, it was against good competition in the Big 12, but is he a real pro? I don't know. He's using all of that stuff, and he just kind of has this like, all right, cool. If you guys have that opinion of me, that's fine. I'm gonna be an all SEC guy this year and prove every single one of you wrong en route to draft status this upcoming year. He's coming in wanting to prove something, and I think it's not going to look like that in terms of an outward, kind of appearance, but he's going to carry himself on the court like a professional, and the production is going to show.
He plays with a pace that I feel like some of the best offensive players that you see play with, where it's a change of pace with him. Like I think he's intentional with his movement that sometimes maybe he's just so free moving and it comes so easy to him offensively with his footwork and things that it probably looks like he's not moving at full speed. But to me, he's moving with a purpose. Now, I think you bring up a good point that I've never really hammered home there. And you're talking about his line and where he's been at Arkansas, at Texas A&M. It's never hit me that's a guy that's got 2 years of SEC experience at other programs. He knows what it takes to play in this league. And then he goes to BYU and plays a really good year in the Big 12. One of the most competitive leagues you can find across any level of college athletics, especially in the sport of basketball. This is a guy, Jack, stepping into a final year of college basketball that knows what he has to do individually, but he also knows what he has to do as a teammate in Mark Pope's system to be successful. Like, I think Jackson, the more, and you know this, I said it back in the spring, I wasn't ready to just key him into Kentucky, being Kentucky's best player. But the more I saw and the more I continue to see, he's going to be Kentucky's best player. And that's not a bad thing. Like, I think he is continuing. He's developed and getting better and better. To me, he's got a pro-like game, especially offensively. Now, maybe we'll see some of that fire come out. Maybe when it's actual game time and they're playing Duke in the Champions Classic, maybe some of that edge comes out. But to me, he's just he moves so naturally that all of it looks so smoothly. The way he gets into his jumper, the way he attacks off the bounce. I think he's a high IQ player that maybe he doesn't have to exert himself with the effort that some guys do. Maybe he just moves freely. He just looks comfortable is what I'm trying to get at. And if he's comfortable doing it and Mark Pope's comfortable with it, hey. But, man, he's going to be a good one. I'm telling you, the more I watch him, the more I like him.
On the flip side, I want to get to the other side of that question about Kobe Brea, because 2 for 10 from 3. This is a kid who made 100 threes last year at Dayton, coin flip 3-point shooter. Mark Pope called him the greatest shooter to come through college basketball in the last decade. Any concerns there? Definitely not one of the top performers of the night. It was just an inter-squad scrimmage, but definitely not one of the guys on the team. Does that concern you at all? In my opinion, it kind of seemed conditioned, but a little bit chalked up to conditioning a little bit, where he had so much downtime, has overcome so many injuries in his long collegiate experience, not wanting to go so fast and kind of burn out quickly or get hurt early or whatever the case is. I'm kind of got that vibe from him that just kind of coming along at his own pace, and that's going to be really important to kind of keep in mind that he might not be a superstar shooter from day one, but I have no doubt about him being, a shot maker in this offense with how many open looks he's going to get. I have no doubt about what he's going to be able to provide for Kentucky long-term, even if it means kind of getting into his rhythm and getting into his flow, at least in the early part of the non-conference.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it because we know that he's a guy that missed a lot of time and missed the summer. And there's one thing that you cannot simulate, Jack, and it's this. You can't simulate the lights being on.
I didn't know where you were going at that. I didn't know where you were going with that, but I liked it.
The lights are off and the lights were on Friday night. Like, that's why you do these things. That's why you do tomorrow night is you put them out there, and it's just a different feel. It's a different feel as a coach. You're in there in practice. The gym's empty. You got a couple of spectators up top or sitting on the side. You're going through the motions. You're doing your thing. You've got a routine. But then when you get out there and there are actual butts in the seats, it's just a different feel. You have a different energy. The blood's flowing a little bit quicker. Like, you have to get acclimated to that. And even though you've played college basketball for a lot of years, you're getting acclimated to it in a new environment, in a new setting with a new team and new personnel and everything. Like, I don't have any – shooting travels. A guy that shoots as efficiently as he did in college basketball, he's going to make shots. He's going to take shots. He's going to make shots. Now, I think you hammered home probably the biggest point is conditioning. That is something that you just cannot simulate either. Like, he's going to have to continue to go through practices, but the biggest thing is going to be getting out there in game environments and getting in game condition. And for shooters, Jack, lower body and conditioning, that's where it's at for these guys. But I saw that in the box score. And then obviously when you're watching it live, you don't really notice it until you see it on paper. Like, yeah, man, he didn't shoot the ball very well.
It
kind of sneaks up on you, right? Like, it's just,
I didn't have that vibe watching him. Like, oh man, Kobe's off. I didn't have that vibe. I kind of thought that he beyond. I don't want to say sluggish, but beyond hey, he's not moving as well up and down the floor as maybe as I thought, but not that like, oh my God, this dude stinks. This dude can't shoot the bright side of the broad side of the barn. Like, I didn't have any of those feelings at all.
And here's probably, why is because we're evaluating 12 guys in one night. But here's the other thing of it too. Some stuff probably gets hidden because you're watching so many guys, but it doesn't stand out as much to you when you're playing you. Now on film, when Mark Pope turns it on, he's probably picked apart some things when he's gone back and watched tape and from practices and things. But for me and you just sitting there and watching Friday night, we probably don't catch as much because we're watching, okay, how does Andrew Carr look? How does Amari Williams look? Man, Colin Chandler's really coming on strong right now. Now, when you get into tomorrow night in this first exhibition where it's 5 Kentucky players on the floor versus 5 opponents, we're probably going to start to pick apart some things a little bit more with some of these guys. But here's the catch that I'm wanting to hopefully everybody gets on board with. I'm not going to just pick through the exhibition schedule. I want to get through the first couple of weeks and see what this rotation looks like and see how guys are performing. One guy's going to play well tomorrow night. Maybe he doesn't play well in the second exhibition. Like, establishing who they are early, I think it's going to be one of the hardest things. It's one of the hardest things to do in college basketball, but I think Kentucky's actually got an advantage because they're so old. Like, we're talking about a team, Jack, that's got hundreds of minutes of college basketball experience at different spots of its roster. It's got guys that have been all league defenders. Like, they're going to figure out how to win together. That some of these things that we see and we're thinking, man, that guy didn't look as great. Well, maybe he looks better with a different set of guys than what the group that he played on the floor with. And that's why I think Mark Pope, mixing and managing teams and lineups and things, he'll find out who those 7, 8, 9 guys are and how they go together. But it's hard to believe that we get Kentucky basketball against a different opponent, right? Like, does it feel like it's been a year since he got hired? Like, I'm sitting here looking out my bedroom window, actually, and I can see Rupp Arena. That's the crazy thing about it. Like, I'm right here, and I just know that the juice in that building tomorrow night is going to be – it's kind of like, man, we finally get to see this team against somebody else. Like, it's no longer the blue-white game, or it's no longer Big Blue Madness. It's actually another opponent. And some of these questions that you and I have in the KSBoard people, they're going to get answered sooner rather than later because we're actually going to get to see what this team's got.
Yeah, and I liked Pope last night. We'll transition into the tip-off luncheon in Louisville where Leanne Pope was there with them, and it was kind of their cute little, king and queen of Kentucky basketball introduction to the fan base. Got some cool little rivalry jabs in enemy territory there in Louisville at Churchill Downs, where Pope was asked what he thought about the UK U of L rivalry, and Leanne said, well, we actually have a mole in our backyard that we named the Cardinal because it is an absolute pest and nuisance and we're trying to kill it. So it was like A+ answer. You have aced the BBN rivalry test. Thank you very much. You did a really good job, but also talked a little bit about just, how excited he is about playing somebody else for a change. And I'll just read the full quote. It said, "We're so excited. I hate giving generic answers, but it's the truth. I cannot wait to have all my guys on one bench. I can't wait. What we're going to do is see if we can play with all the intensity and all the panache, all the drive and the fight that you get when fatigue doesn't enter the contest, like we talked about earlier. Not having to juggle 40-minute stretches for each guy. What I'm looking for is if our intensity level can get to a 9.5 and see if we can get there and sustain it for 40 minutes, every second of 40 minutes with 12 terrific basketball players we have. That's our goal. talked about just loving them and moments of lows, and that, those are going to come, but their intensity and courage and bravado and recklessness, which is a beautiful way to play this game right now. He says they're spending almost as much time on the floor as they are standing up and running down the floor. It's really fun on blue white on Friday. Probably the most engaged the crowd was when the three guys dove on the floor for a loose ball and all collided with each other, and that's when they really felt BBN. So it's good. They're just kind of seeing what that feels like and able to kind of work through the rotation stuff. And Pope said it best at SEC Media Days. He's like, I want to get punched in the mouth. I want to get tested. I want to get exposed. Use the term exposed, and said, I kind of want to get challenged by Kentucky Wesleyan and have them throw something at us where we have to go, ooh, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to counter that. How can we respond to that? How can we come together? Yes, maybe individually they know how to respond in an individual setting, but how can they come together and have that chemistry, show the meshing and those different things? They just don't know that yet. So I'm excited. I kind of hope that we get a little bit of pushback from Kentucky Wesleyan. Obviously, we need to kick their butt at the very end and spread out that lead, but show some stuff where you're not going to learn anything from a 120-45 victory. Get something out of this and learn something about your team.
You could tell you've been around me for 5 years, because that sounds just like me last year. I'm like, man, I want this thing to be a possession by possession game under 4. Remember when I would say those things last year, and you would text me like, well, you got what you wished for.
When we lose to
now.
UNC Washington. Yep, remember it vividly.
So no, but you're right though. Like, and Pope's right. And I said it on our season predictions that I don't know how many teams this group's going to blow out. Like, I think they're going to play a lot of close games, and then execution becomes the biggest factor of whether or not you win. Can you execute? And I think Pope knows that. And in year one, when you don't really have the guys that you've recruited from high school, and you establish your blueprint by having to identify what you wanted out of the portal, and it had to be done so quickly, this probably isn't the roster that Mark Pope wants to have in year 3 or year 4, with being significantly older and not having kind of that middle ground of returning players that have been in your program. Right now it's Jackson Robinson, but at some point he's going to want to mix in 4 or 5 familiar faces with some new pieces and some portal. He's talked about that a lot, talked about it with us that day that we sat down with him. So when you look at it that way, I think Mark Pope knows that there's going to be a lot of tests. Now, is Kentucky Wesleyan going to beat Kentucky? I don't think so. I don't see this team losing to any of those teams early in the season, because I think they're going to execute well enough offensively. I think they're old enough to understand that they played a lot of November college basketball games, and that's where a lot of your upsets happen, that what it takes to avoid it. Plus, I also think that this team is going to maybe have a chip on a shoulder to defend to the clip early in the season, because you're going to have to impress Mark Pope somewhere to get minutes. And I don't know if taking and making corner threes is going to be what he hangs his hat on, because he's got plenty of guys that can do that. Who's going to sit and guard? Who's going to protect the rim? Who's going to dive on the floor and make some of those plays that you were talking about a moment ago? To me, Jack, this is going to be that team that plays close game, maybe where we got plenty of games where we come down and it's under 8 and it's a 9-10 point game. Maybe you got the lead. But those environments happen naturally. Those opportunities happen naturally throughout your season. But I don't know if they're going to get that one tomorrow night. But what you will get is you'll get to see some guys that maybe perform well together, and who responds and does some of those things that Mark Pope's looking for. But so he'll have some questions answered. But I'm just excited to see a different opponent on the other side, and to actually, sit here and be able to talk about what Kentucky did together instead of doing it against one another in practice or in a scrimmage.
Yeah, a couple just quick hitters on the tip-off luncheon. I liked them kind of revealing that the women's clinic is going to return. That's always a cool event that's going to come back for all of our women listeners. That is going to be Friday, November 1st. So the last little preview before the season starts, it's going to be a good time. So they got to reveal that a little bit. It was cute. A lot of their kind of life story and what they mean to one another and how they kind of intertwine as this, like I said, king and queen of Kentucky basketball, kind of overtaking the throne that Ellen and John had, and Tubby and Donna, and just kind of the the big time relationships, just kind of showing the changing of the guard there. I thought that was really cool. Goose Givens was there, asked Leanne what her role is with these kids and the team, and just Ellen Calipari kind of was the brownies, and kind of being the mother figure to a lot of them, and interested to see what her response was there. Said that she's just there to love on these boys, like to make them feel wanted and loved, and understand that they always have a support system, even if their mom isn't right there, or their parents aren't in town or whatever. That part was really cool. And just so you know, Tyler Thompson's about to drop an absolute banger on the website on Wednesday morning to get the season rolling. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best thing that you have read in a very, very long time. I got a little sneak peek of it this afternoon and just loved every second of it. So the best story that you will have read on Leanne and Mark and their story and their journey and all that stuff. But we got like kind of little just brief snippets, if you will, at the luncheon that kind of they really dig deeper and deeper into in Tyler's story. So make sure you go check that out. But if you're listening to this Wednesday morning, just switch over to KSR. Make sure you read that before the game tonight. It's an absolute blast of a read. Well done, Tyler, as always. But very cool event, kind of the last of the let's get the preseason stuff out of the way. Talking season's over, all the tip-off stuff, this and that, and then the real stuff starts on Wednesday. Kentucky Wesleyan is going to be an absolute blast. Can't wait to see what that looks like, and just like you said, see an opponent for a change. So any last second things that we want to hit on before we transition into the KSBoard questions? Because I know that's something fans are very, very excited to hit on. Anything before we kind of rapid fire through those things?
No, I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to ask, what are we looking for in an exhibition game with so many new faces? And it's wild because the situations are different, but they're kind of the same, right? Because last year there were so many faces we didn't really know about, but they were all so young. These faces, something about them, but you don't know Kentucky about them. Like, you don't know what their version of Kentucky is. So I'm just excited to just let these guys come and get some nerves out. Playing in Memorial, it's different than playing in Rupp. Playing in Rupp, there's going to be a lot more people there. There's going to be a bigger venue, a bigger building. They're going to get their first, and you got it at Big Blue Madness, but it's different when you get that actual game feel, where when you do something good or you're going on a quick 7-0 spurt and Amari Williams puts his elbows in the rim and the crowd pops. Like, it's just a different roar that you can't simulate. And I'm excited for those guys. I don't know how wild the environment's going to get, but I think in Mark Pope's first game where it's against another opponent, I think there's going to be more excitement for this exhibition than we've ever seen.
I think there's going to be a pop. I agree.
I do too. And I think that's going to give these guys a real taste of what it's going to be. And when you feel it once, Jack, and you'll know this from me and you sitting there covering all these games, when you feel it once, you get addicted to how good it feels in that building. Like, when that building pops, it's different. Like, it gives you something that you're like, man, I wish I could bottle this and then use it and just feel it at random points throughout my week, because I'd probably get through my last 2 hours of work if I could feel this energy. It's just different. And I think that those guys are going to get their taste of it. And that's what I'm looking forward to, honestly. It's not as much about on the court stuff as it is. I just want them to get that first moment out of the way and then look forward to the next one.
Couldn't agree more. Let's transition a little bit to our KSBoard questions. But first, a message from our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Let's just jump into some of these KSBoard questions. My favorite, just right off the bat, from Connor Rigg. We'll go through these pretty quickly because we'll spend an hour on them if we try to dig too much on each of them. But 5 different questions. First thought: most impactful defender on the team.
Lamont Butler.
Stealing John. Yikes! Mark Pope's answer there. But that.
Yeah, that.
Best 3-point shooter.
Oh, man, that's it. You can go a lot of ways.
I'm not stealing Mark Pope's answer on this one.
You can go a lot of ways with that, man. Brr. Jackson Robinson.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one. I'm going to trust the volume. I'm going to trust the efficiency with Kobe Brea. I just, there's too much there. I think he's going to get it figured out, and he's going to figure out. I just dream of the open shots that he's going to get in the system. I just think seeing the system with my own 2 eyes, knowing that there may be situations where he'll have 10 3-point attempts at a game. There are going to be some games where he hits 5, 6, 7 of them and really, really light that thing up. So I'm going with Kobe Brea there. Question 3, highest point per game, rebounds per game, assists per game. So leading scorer.
All separate. Leading scorer. I'm going to go a little bit different direction here. I think Andrew Carr could really push into being Kentucky's leading scorer.
Well, if you trust what Mark Pope said, you should expect 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 of 10 from the free throw line every single night. That's the floor. That's the baseline for him.
The reason I think that's because I think he's going to be able to score it in a variety of ways in different areas of the floor. Rebounds. If Amari Williams gets the minutes, I'll go Amari Williams. And assist. Still ain't got to see him yet. I mean, if Kerr plays a lot, I think Kerr's going to get a lot. But I'll go Lamont just because I think Lamont's going to have the ball in his hands a lot.
Jackson Robinson as the scorer. Lamont Butler as the leading rebounder and assist guy.
I like it.
Lamont rebounded his ass off in the blue-white game. And I know he's always there. He just has a nose for the basketball. He's always around it. And I know it sounds crazy because you don't want your 6'2" point guard to be that guy, but Lamont's different, bro. I'm just telling you, Lamont, the way he defends and the way he processes the game is just different. Lamont is a special basketball player. I will admit I kind of had some doubts when Kentucky signed him and made such a push for him initially, but man, seeing him with my own 2 eyes and just watching how he just has this natural feel on both sides. Yes, his shot efficiency is not where you want it to be. Got to get that better. But I will say he launches with confidence in a way that I wonder if Mark Pope instilling that confidence in you and saying, you are a damn good shooter, keep launching that thing, what that does to your percentage. Is he going to stay at 30, 31%, or does instilling that confidence you push you to 35, 36%? You know, if you can get Lamont Butler to shoot 36% from 3 on the year, that's a really, really scary thing for the rest of the college basketball world. So I got Lamont for both rebounding and assist on that one. Question 4, who have the best dunk of the season? Feel like we have a pretty easy after saying the Big Blue Madness and good old Colin Chandler in the blue-white game.
Yeah, we absolutely could go with Colin Chandler there. I'm gonna go. When you look at Amari Williams and just how physical he is, I could really see him just putting one right on somebody's head out of a post up.
That's a good angle. And what also makes me kind of think Otega Owe could have one where, like, do you remember Michael Kidd-Gilchrist? Was it Portland, I believe, where he gets the steal, gets a breakaway, and there's just poor soul underneath the basket. And he just goes up and, I mean, just tears the rim off and ends this guy's life. I think there's going to be an Otega Owe moment where he kind of gets the steal. Somebody's going to challenge him at the rim, and he's just going to end his life, unfortunately. So I'm going Otega Owe on that one as the surprise because I feel like Colin's kind of a cop-out answer. Oh, love this one. Will Kerr Kriisa get someone to throw a punch at him during a game?
100%. Yes. Yes. So, if not a punch, there's going to be an elbow. There's going to be something that's thrown his way. Yes.
And somebody on that note asked later on, what's the over-under set on technical fouls for Mark Pope? They set it at Mark Pope 1.5 on the year and Kerr Kriisa 2.5 on the year. I gave my answer on the board, but I want to hear yours.
So am I taking the over on those?
For the love of the game says, if I set the over-under for technicals for Pope this year at 1.5, what are you taking? And if I set it at 2.5 for Kerr, what are you taking?
I'm going to go under on both.
I'm going over for Kerr for the reasons we discussed before. And I feel like, I didn't have the numbers right in front of me, but when I saw this question and just quickly, Googled it, and he had his big moment where he threw the water bottle down last year. And there was another one later on in conference play he got two last year, but they felt like one-offs. They just felt like, kind of isolated incidents where he'll rip into an official, he'll get after it, but that's not really just kind of his persona and his demeanor. So I'm gonna say under for him, but I think Kerr's gonna hit it, man. Kerr is gonna be a pain in the ass to a lot of teams this year, and it's gonna lead to just some just some stuff. So let's keep rolling through these. Snowman says thoughts on whether and how Trent Noah and Travis Perry will contribute this year and beyond. What did you think of the Kentucky boys in the blue-white game?
Obviously, I like them as developmental guys in your program moving forward that can provide a role if you need it in a pinch. Obviously, when you look at the two, I think Travis provides that shot maker, that guy that can take and make shots, especially if you see some zone. It wouldn't shock me if you see him in the game at some point. Trent's obviously got the body advantage, and he can also shoot it too. So I don't know how much of a role, like impactful, it'll be this year for those two. But I think you're going to get a look at those guys here in the first couple of weeks. I just don't know how significant it's going to be. I need to see them in a competitive environment against another team before I'm really ready to lean on what their role and what, how impactful they could be. I don't think it's going to be in the upper 7, 8 of the rotation, but it wouldn't shock me if there's a game here in the non-con that Travis Perry ends up playing 12, 13, 14 minutes because he goes in and can make a couple of shots.
So I think Travis was thrown a little bit too much into the fire in the blue-white game because of Kerr Kriisa's absence. And it kind of made him look probably not as far along as he may be, because just a lot of stuff was run through him, and you could tell that the SEC length was kind of getting to him and the athleticism was kind of getting to him. He wasn't able to kind of create shots the way, as an on-ball guy that Kerr is going to be, that he's probably the role that he's probably going to have early and maybe throughout his career. I don't know yet, but especially early, the minutes that he's going to get is going to be he's going to be a 6-foot shooting guard. That's just going to be Travis Perry until he kind of gets his legs under him and, gets the pace and the feel down a little bit and kind of can handle a little bit more of the on-ball stuff. So I think Travis looked a little worse than he actually is at this stage, but that was because he kind of took on a bigger, more expanded, uncomfortable role with Kerr Kriisa out. So I'm not worried about Travis, but I think we're going to see a lot of that early, that, he just some physical disadvantages that he's not ready to kind of overcome quite yet, but he's going to get there. Trent Noah is shooting lights out right now, but similar vibe, just the pace and the feel and kind of understanding of SEC basketball is just not there for him quite yet. So I think the guys that we're expecting to be at the bottom of the rotation are going to be. And I think we can safely assume those two are going to be. I kind of thought Colin would be included in that, but I think he's farther along, and not just based on one inter-squad scrimmage, but you're hearing more things, and the more people you talk to kind of make it sound like that's going to be more of a realistic long-term thing. So probably going to see them slide down in the rotation a little bit. And if I have a question about another guy who is maybe a rotation guy, if you will, I think Ainsley Almanor was the one that I kind of left the blue-white game going, okay, I'm not quite there yet in terms of seeing the vision. I saw it for so many guys, but Ainsley, I'm still kind of shaky on, and it wouldn't shock me if, if the rotation does get cut to 9, if he's the 10th guy, if you will. So we'll see. He's one I just got to see more of. We'll see more of him in the non-conference, but we're going to see how all this stuff shakes out here in 24 hours. So,
which goes back to me with Ainsley when I keep saying he's the guy that's most suited for his role. If he's the 10th man, I don't know how upset he's going to be. If he's the 9th man, I don't know how upset he's going to be, but he's going to have a moment this year, I'm telling you, where he's going to go in and play maybe some chunk minutes for Kentucky in a game due to foul trouble or due to an injury or due to illness or something. He's the guy that I felt like all along, Jack, has been the most easiest to put in a role. And I think that could be what his role could be. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's 10th man.
Yeah, we'll see. I know we got to get out of here relatively quickly, so let's try to go through these pretty quickly. Cat's Paws 30 says, biggest concern or concerns for this team?
How long does it take for him to knock down and hammer down a rotation? Like that's my biggest concern, because I don't want it to go too long until they figure it out. I hope that by early December they've got an idea.
Boom says, does Colin Chandler fall into the lore of just spectacular blue-white games, or do you think he could be a serious contender for the SEC all-freshman team? We talked a little bit about thinking that he might be better than, more closer to what we saw in the blue-white than Darnell Dodson, but I like that all-SEC freshman angle. What did you think about that part?
I like it, and if he's able to end up somehow playing 13, 14, 15 minutes a game, then maybe he's on the line of getting into that. I do think that I'm giving him a greater possibility of making an impact as a freshman than what I was giving him 2 months ago, because I do think that some of that rust and stuff, I think it's starting to come off. And obviously pay attention to what order guys come off the bench tomorrow night. And that'll tell you kind of where Mark Pope was going through fall practices.
I'll graduate eventually says, what do you think the ceiling and floor is for this team in the regular season? We did our preseason predictions where we kind of touched on this, but let's say this translates to NCAA tournament seed as kind of a baseline, as that way we don't have to go through every single individual game or record or whatever. What would you say the ceiling and floor is? Well,
my floor was actually going to be 19 to 20 wins. Like that's where I was going to put it. So I'll put the floor at 20. I think this is going to be a 20-win team. I'm not getting caught up in they're going to go 17 and 14 or 18 and 13. I think that they got too much. The ceiling for me is they figured out and have a really good stretch in the non-conference, and they somehow get to 24 regular season wins, 23. Like I'll put the ceiling at 23 and I'll put the floor at 20. That's marginal, right? Like that's
I feel like that's fair. I feel like I think we have a good feel. Like I said before, leaving pro day, wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. I came away whelmed. They were exactly what I thought that they were going to be based on what we knew about each of these guys. That's a good thing. Like I think that this is going to be a good basketball team. I know this is going to be a good basketball team. That's going to lead to a tighter window of, good, maybe, but maybe not great. And I think that's okay for year one.
I don't know if this is a top 3 seed in the tournament, but I think 4 through 6, 4 through 7 is in play, and that's where I think they settle. I don't think this is an 8, 9, 10 seed team. I think they're somewhere in that range of top 25 team to right on somewhere hovering between 15 and 25 all year in the polls. Maybe they get up apex somewhere where they push towards the top 10, but the league's going to be so tough, Jack, that if you don't start there, I don't know how easy it's going to be to get there. Because you're going to lose games.
When I asked that question, I initially had NCAA tournament floor ceiling in my head, and I went in saying ceiling I think is a 3 seed, floor is probably a 6. I don't see them being maybe better, but I just don't see them being any worse. Again, I think this is going to be a really good team. Let's try to get a couple better, a couple good ones. Albert 2330. What player do you think is best at driving to the basket? Are you worried that our big men won't provide enough inside scoring? And then
Jackson
one more.
Go ahead.
And then
Jackson Robinson getting to the basket.
I think Lamont Butler is going to be as gifted as they come at getting to the paint, getting paint touches and knowing what to do, whether it's find the kickouts or finish at the basket. I think he's going to be in a really unique spot where there's going to be so much accountability with accounting for all of the shooters on the outside that he's going to kind of be able to get his game off a little bit more than maybe more than you'd expect.
That was going to be number 2 for me. Jackson's pace that he plays at and understanding how his vision is offensively, I think helps him get crafty and finish at the rim too.
And let's wrap up with this one. And one question after this is going to be about recruiting, but the last team specific one. Jay Turn 4 says Matt McCall made a good point yesterday on Field of 68. Does this team actually need a bucket getter in crunch time? His point was that the offense is so good at creating shots, he doesn't necessarily view this as a problem if we don't have one. Had never really thought about it that way, but I tend to agree. Lots of guys to make the shot that gets created. We're just not used to an offense that does that.
The scheme is so good that it's not as much about the bucket getter. Is it about how intentional are you in scheming what you're trying to get? Like, are you trying to run some staggers and things for Jackson Robinson or some zoom, but maybe it's a decoy to get a backdoor or to get some type of action empty on the other side of the floor? Like, to me, it's about the scheme is what's going to make Kentucky so strong. I'm still confident that you need a bucket getter in moments, but you can also become so dependent on that bucket getter that it actually becomes a bad thing. That I like the system more and the scheme more than I like the bucket getter. So I think that's a great question and a point.
Well, let's get out of here with this. We got to wrap up here very shortly, but some recruiting updates, some very important recruiting updates. We have Malachi Moreno. We have Jasper Johnson, signed, sealed, delivered. Well, they will be in November, but Caden Lewis trending heavily toward Kentucky. We're getting some crystal balls. I haven't been really shy about my really strong confidence in Kentucky landing the dynamic lefty out of the DC area on KSBoard. Talked about it, hinted at it on this show quite a bit, but things are trending really well. He left the Kentucky visit and I had heard nothing but like, hey, it's all but done. Time to just kind of nail down some of the final details and things like that. But I would be shocked if Caden Lewis is not a Kentucky Wildcat, and I think he's going to be in the next week or two. So that's something to watch very closely. 2 lefties in the backcourt. I would kind of start mentally preparing that for that. Jasper Johnson and Caden Lewis. I think that's going to be a really fun, unique backcourt for Kentucky. Again, got to get it finalized and put pen to paper there, but. I think it's going to be a really interesting backcourt for Mark Pope in year 2. And then all eyes are on, I want to make sure I put the there you go. Little Caden Lewis, little things. I'm running producer on the show tonight. So trying to get my game off tonight a little bit. But, and then from there, we get all eyes on Caleb Wilson. Things are trending in a really good direction with him. A lot of the questions on KSBoard were about those 2 in particular, just how much of a done deal is a Caden, and then where do things stand with Caleb Wilson and Chris Senack. I feel much better about Caleb Wilson than I do Chris Senack. The issue with Caleb, and something that I would keep in mind and kind of monitor closely. You talk to people, other schools that are recruiting him as well. They're kind of feeling the same love that Kentucky felt leaving their visit, which makes you wonder, are they just kind of saying to the school what they are wanting to hear and make them feel the love and make them feel that they are, in deep with them and, potentially the favorite or whatever. So just something to monitor. I think Kentucky's in a really good spot for Caleb Wilson. I wouldn't say that they're the overwhelming favorite, but I would definitely kind of put it as a 1A, 1B type of situation with North Carolina, maybe some hometown Georgia Tech still kind of flirting there. I don't think that Arkansas is going to be the choice for him. So some different dynamic things at play, different factors at play there. But I do think that there is a very real scenario where this thing is a 4-man class with a Caden Lewis and Caleb Wilson, and potentially even in the early signing period in November, Sean. So what would that do for you? How would that kind of impact kind of your vision of the future of Mark Pope, knowing what we know about this current roster, what's coming back hopefully next season, and you kind of going forward with four rookies for year 2?
Job well done. That's what I would say, because I think it alleviates pressure on the current season, because you're not having to think as much about your class. And then you can kind of, key in on transfer portal targets and what you need, development in-house of in your program, what you're returning. So I think, to me, that would be the biggest thing, is getting it done early, or at least 80% finished to what you're wanting your class to be. I just think it takes a lot off you, because then you can kind of focus and shift your attention, in another direction, that you've got a lot of the battle already won and done.
And I think, again, there's a lot to play out, especially with Caleb Wilson. That's going to be one they'll argue against it, but everything you hear about them is that it is going to be kind of a financially driven decision where, just to get to Kentucky has gotten to the closing table. Now it's kind of like what we talked about with Jasper Johnson, where they became one of the 3 finalists. Now let's see if this kind of turns into kind of where the pecking order goes from there. I think there is going to be some of that. They might argue against it and say that, money isn't a big priority for us. I have mentioned on this show before that the brand of Kentucky is definitely appealing to them, and they have seen what being at Kentucky and representing the biggest brand in college sports, what that does for you, and you kind of maybe not needing the extra, nickel and dime change with NIL, knowing that the long-term lucrative rewards are going to be there. So a couple different things at play just to keep in mind. It's a little bit more complicated. I think it's going to take a little bit more pushing and shoving and getting, at the closing table to get that thing wrapped up. But Kentucky's in a great spot. Kentucky really is in a great spot. And they're in a really solid spot for Chris Senack as well. Just more up in the air on that one. And I just didn't get the same overwhelmingly positive vibe leaving his Kentucky visit as we did with Caleb Wilson. I think the order of operations is definitely going to start with Caden Lewis, get that one wrapped up, get that one committed, signed, sealed, delivered, and then we'll see what happens with Caleb Wilson, and then kind of go to the next tier of targets in terms of timelines and going into the late fall, early winter, and then into the spring. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. Kentucky is recruiting its absolute butt off right now. I am so impressed with the assistants. I'm so impressed with just the, how everything is going with them. And on the recruiting front, they're gaining a lot of respect nationally with it. So a lot to like about the recruiting front. I think we're going to get some news on that sooner rather than later in early November, especially for a Caden Lewis to kind of turn 2 to 3, and we'll see if we can turn 3 to 4 there from there, Sean. This was an absolute blast. If I didn't get to answer your question on KSBoard, go back to the board. I will have it probably answered by the time you watch this for some of the few ones that we missed, but appreciate everybody, reaching out and supplying some questions for that. And on that note, make sure that you are going to subscribe. And I believe we have a flash sale right now, $1 for 7 days and 50% off the first year. So make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. We got a lot of fun stuff going on over there. So make sure you follow along with all that fun work over there. So Sean, this was a blast, man. Thanks for coming on.
You may tell you my Instacart story as we.
Oh yes, thank God. Yes.
The craziest thing ever. Like, no joke. So I do Instacart. Just honestly, I enjoy it. Like, not all the time, but if I get out of practice or if I don't have anything going on, I just turn on the app and see what happens. So I get a double batch from Target in Hamburg. And kid you not, I text Jack and I was like, bro, literally the first order that I delivered was to Lamont Butler. It was to Lamont, and I wasn't expecting Lamont Butler to open the door. It wasn't at the lodge. So I was like, oh, hey, like kind of we just had that look. And then he's like, hey, thanks, man. So I text Jack, hey, just delivered Instacart to Lamont Butler. On my way to my second batch, I'm going through gate after gate after gate, and I'm like, where am I? Mark Pope's house. The second part of the order, no joke, goes to Mark Pope's daughter. And I'm like, you can't make this up. So I literally called Jack because I was like, you cannot make this up that they're on the same Instacart order. And I got his point guard and I dropped off at his house the second part of it. So she gave me a 5-star rating, by the way. So I'll take it. I don't know if Lamont did, but it told me she did. It literally was like, oh.
Do they tip well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
They appreciate the delivery service there.
Well done, Mark and Leanne. Well done for raising the fam right, raising your point guard, PG1 right too. Hilarious story. Absolutely the best.
Yeah, one of those like, what just happened to me moments. Like, out of all these thousands of people in Lexington, they're on the same batch and they didn't do it together. Yeah, okay. Like,
oh, well, a great way to end a very fun show. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. It's going to be fun. We got a basketball game tomorrow night. Cannot wait for that to happen. Kentucky Wesleyan versus Kentucky at Rupp Arena, 7 o'clock Wednesday night. We will see you there, and then we'll see you afterward for a little bit of a post-game rundown and talk about what's next for Kentucky basketball as we wrap up the exhibition schedule and then get to the real stuff, the fun stuff. Cannot wait. It's going to be a fun season. Be along for the ride. We'll see you guys next time.